Hey everybody, welcome to Better Every Shift. My name is Aaron Zamzow. I'm a firefighter EMT in Madison, Wisconsin, and with me is Janelle Fosquet. She is the editor-in-chief and co-captain on the podcast. She's editor-in-chief for Fire Rescue One, and she has been my editor for 12 years and makes me sound really, really halfway smart. Let's just go that far. And today, we are very, very privileged to have Chief Reggie Freeman from Oakland Fire Department here. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio, but I won't even touch it, all the different accomplishments that you have achieved in your over 20-year career. 31st Fire Chief for Oakland, California Fire Department. Prior to that, you were a chief at Hartford, Connecticut Fire. You began as a career firefighter in Mississippi. You've been a fire chief in Iraq, fire chief for Lockheed Martin. You serve as an adjunct professor for several universities and colleges and members of academia, board of directors for the NFPA. You're a fellow for the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. And drum roll, you are also a doctorate of emergency and protective services. And I'm going to break this. This is new. You're also recognized as a 2022 influencer by the International Fire and Safety Journal. I can't fit anymore or else I'm out of breath. Welcome, Dr. Chief. This is the first Doctor in Chief I think I've talked to. Janelle, I don't know if you have as well, but
I know which one. What's the order? Is it Dr. Chief or Chief Doctor?
Hey, you know what? I appreciate it, Aaron and Janelle, but just please call me Reggie. My friends call me Reggie.
That will be easier.
Yeah, it will be easier. And you and I are very kindred spirits in the fact that I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and you've done a podcast here with Chief Basher, and one of the things is that you are continually trying to improve yourself, which is really what we're all about here at Better Every Shift. And you've taken different classes and courses to make yourself better, and that's kind of what got you to the doctorate. But what's the motivation behind that? Like, where did that come from?
That's a great question, Aaron. And again, thank you, Janelle, for having me on this show. Really appreciated it. Truly remarkable to be here representing all the great members of the Oakland Fire Department. But Aaron, for me, it's simple, man. I did not want to be the weakest link when those tones hit. No matter the emergency, we are an all hazards response organization, and doesn't matter if it's an extrication, a technical rescue, a commercial job, or your bread and butter single family home. When those tones hit, I wanted to make sure I was competent. And we define competency in different ways in the fire service for the longest time. I've been in the game 21 years. So when I first got on the job, competency was equivalent to tenure, right? The longer you were on the job, if you were a 20, 25, 30-year member, then you were automatically competent. But today, because our profession is so fluid and so dynamic, we define competency as one's training, education, and experience, but more importantly, the application of that training, education, and experience. Yeah. So early on in my career as a firefighter EMT, I refused to be the weakest link. I was going to handle my business as a firefighter on that engine or on that truck.
Yeah. How do you teach that to somebody?
You let them know where you failed. I appreciate the gracious introduction, but we always are so quick to talk about the awards and accolades, but we stay mum on where we fell short or where we failed. And so I share my failures with our team. A lot of that starts with pride.
Yeah.
Pride, insecurity, going down the wrong path when you thought it was the initial path, but that little voice in the back of your head you ignored. So, I share those moments with my members, whether it be senior officers or even firefighters when I'm in the firehouse doing station visits. And, you really leave it up to them to make a decision on what's right for them. Because even with the folks that I idolize in the fire service, if I tried to emulate them to a T, I would fail miserably and fall flat on my face, because we have to be our authentic selves.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that those members who really care about making a difference and care about being the best professional emergency responder they can be, they really take heed to those conversations. And again, they pat you on the back when you get those awards and accolades, but they listen intensely when you talk about your failures and your shortcomings.
Yeah. So I did also hear, when you started Mississippi over 20 years ago, and it wasn't all roses for you. You had, you had some hardships. You had some of the members you worked with kind of sabotaging gear, trying to, like again, mess with you, and yet you're behind the scenes trying to get better and educating yourself. Am I right with that? Like, what was your mindset then as that was going on?
Yeah, Aaron, that was the hardest experience of my life, for me, everything that I experienced in Mississippi, back in 2001, right? Because my experience is, you would think it's 1960.
Yeah.
And everything that I experienced back then, it really motivated me to really work hard, to not only to make sure that I was not that weakest link, but also to put myself in a position to where, you know what, I'm going to be chief of the department one day, and I'm going to ensure that everyone is treated with respect and dignity, no matter the gender, no matter what they look like, no matter what side of town they come from, regardless of what their personal beliefs are. I'm going to make sure that everyone is treated with dignity and respect, because I didn't get that. And I know how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, man, I say if bigots, racists, and misogynists really knew what it felt like to be on the receiving end of that rhetoric, they wouldn't dare treat anybody like that.
Yeah.
And so as the chief of the department, that's one thing that's non-negotiable, is treating people with respect and dignity. And so that was my motivation, is really those turbulent times, and, the heartache and the headache that I experienced, it really put me in a position of where I wanted to control my own destiny.
Yeah. And you made some mistakes, as you said, along the way, but pride, just reiterating, pride kind of says, okay, I messed up. And obviously you admit it if you did, or when you had that hardship. And I was telling Janelle off, when we were talking a little bit off podcast or off show, I was like, I just, researching, your story and going from Mississippi, I'm like, I was super excited, and, thank you for answering all that. But it says something for you, and, what your belief is. So let's transfer that to your firefighters, right? Like, when we say better every shift, and how do you try to encompass that, ball it up, and project, and not maybe project, but use that to motivate your firefighters? And what are you doing in Oakland?
Yeah, what it boils down to, Aaron, is let them be great. There is no fire chief without firefighters, and there is no fire department without firefighters. And unfortunately, some of my colleagues who have 5 trumpets, I would say bugles, but I got to be historically correct. We have trumpets, not bugles. But some of my colleagues that are fire chiefs have forgotten where they've come from, unfortunately. And without firefighters being empowered, how can we expect there to be a difference made within our respective organizations? And so what I do is I sit down with the firefighters along with the senior team, and we listen to what the firefighters want. I'm downtown on the 3rd floor. I don't know what tool's best for you to use. You use it every day, so you tell me, right?
Yeah.
When I first got on the job, it was an autocratic profession. You didn't ask questions. When that lieutenant or captain or even senior firefighter was walking by you, swinging a mop or a broom, you tried to grab it out of their hands. If you didn't, it was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
That culture and that activity is somewhat changed today in firehouses. And so for me, as the chief of the department, and down from my deputies to assistant chiefs, et cetera, the message that we convey and the culture that we live is that, number one, we don't have employees or subordinates. We have team and family members. Number two, you as a firefighter, you don't work for us. We work for you as command staff. And number three, this is our department, not my department. And so I'm very proud of the fact that, when we talk about nurturing the future leadership of the organization, we let those individuals who are the current and future leadership have a seat at the table to determine what that training looks like. And so we establish our first robust professional development program here in Oakland. Did the exact same thing in Hartford, Connecticut, when I was chief there for 5, 6 years. And it was a program developed by the members for the members. And it's all encompassing, looking at not just the hands-on practical training that's critically important, whether it be high risk, low frequency type training evolutions to very strategic leadership and management classes. But the members were at the table and they had input and say so in what that professional development program looked like. On top of that, lastly, I'll say is we removed the barriers that stopped them from pursuing professional development. For the longest time, our members, if they did find a class, they would have to trade off with someone else or use vacation. I had that same experience and I absolutely hated it as a firefighter. So what did I do? We removed that barrier. We said, hey, if you find a class, I'll cover your time. When we send folks to National Fire Academy or the Center for Domestic Preparedness in Alabama or down in Monterey to the Naval Postgraduate School, we told our members, if you get accepted into these programs, I'll cover your spot. You don't have to use your own time to go to these classes. And so that's been huge and greatly appreciated by the members.
That's fantastic.
What was the biggest thing when you walked out of that meeting, when you're asking your members for input, what was the biggest surprise? What was the thing that you went, okay, okay, I got you now, what was the aha, I guess?
So there was 3 things they asked for, Aaron, because, when I first got here, I wanted to make a point to sit down in front of all the members in all the firehouses. So 3 things that they consistently ask for: more training, more leadership, and more accountability. Now, leadership and training I get, but I've never in my life heard of firefighters asking for more accountability.
I'm curious because you know what my next question is going to be.
Right. And so, what that boiled down to is just the consistency or the application of the department rules and regulations. You can't do one thing for Timmy, but then when Jane does that same thing, because Jane is outside of that inner circle, the corrective action is a lot more stiffer for Jane than it is for Timmy. And so that accountability piece is huge. And you can't have accountability without consistency.
Right.
So,
policy, SOGs.
Absolutely. That's standard operating guidelines, standard operating procedures, policies, rules and regs, all of that. You have to be consistent in the application of those tenements.
So I gotta switch a little bit into you personally. So what motivates you? I mean, I see there's a little theme. Like I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Like you were kind of on the outside, right? You talk and we know in the fire service we have these inner groups, and one of the things that I really respect and love that your message is like, hey, we're going to open this up a little bit. Is that what was motivating you a lot? I mean, there's also, you talked about pride, but I mean, what are some of those other things that made you open that book or made you pursue that education?
I'll be honest with you, Aaron. For me, it was just injustice. Injustice motivated me. My family inspires me to this day. My wife and I, we've been together 19 years this year. As of December 17th, it'll be 19 years.
Congrats. That's huge in the fire service. It's great.
Super huge, man. High school sweethearts, met junior year in high school. And my family, and now my 2 daughters, Harmony and Joy, certainly the center of our universe. But my family inspires me and injustice motivates me. And I say that because, in our profession, here in Oakland, we got 25 houses, roughly 520 firefighters, and $188 million budget. And for me, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, even though that's been consistently talked about now, I'd say for about last 5, 6, 7 years, that's something for the last 21 years of my career, I have had intimate knowledge of, or the lack thereof, right? So, for me, when I look at it from a motivational standpoint, diversity is a choice. We make a decision if we're going to be a diverse organization or not. And equity, as this pertains to an organization being equitable, that is something that we have to truly embrace. You have to be very intentional to have an equitable organization.
Mhm.
And that really just means just leveling the playing field. And so with a diverse organization that's equitable, the only way to get to the point of a sense of belonging is to be inclusive. And that's why, with our regular meetings with Local 55, our IFF chapter here in Oakland, and the executive board, we meet on a monthly basis. Any critical decision that impacts the organization, I reach out to the president and we have a conversation about it. If there's some critical piece of information I'm going to distribute or disseminate to the organization, I make sure that I call or text the union president to give him a heads up so he's not blindsided. So being inclusive, being diverse, equitable, as well as inclusive gives the membership of the organization a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
And because I never had that at the beginning of my career, that's what motivates me every
Yeah.
single day and drives my decision-making process.
And I know the answer to this one is it doesn't happen fast enough though, does it?
Oh, and that's one of my flaws. I'm very impatient. Don't believe me, ask my wife.
Right? But that's where that partner comes in, right? They kind of
That's
talk
right.
you off a little bit, right? Like, hey, just,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
well, we're talking about it here, and I've read about it. I've watched you, so I believe you're making an impact. So keep doing that.
Thank you.
Take it for what it's worth. But I'm way up in Wisconsin, and you're motivating people like me. I was telling Janelle, I'm like, I really got to go back and get my master's, because I just started reading all your stuff. So really, that's what I think a big part of what it's about. And just trying to motivate those around us. So keep doing what you're doing, Chief, on that part. And thank you.
Thank you.
And I think
you mentioned Madison. My uncle's retired off the job in Milwaukee. Tony White. He was on the truck.
Okay. Is he still in Wisconsin then, or is he?
No, they moved to Memphis.
Yeah. They're like, heck. By the way, it's snowing already here. Regardless of when you're listening to this,
moved to Memphis.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about kind of how you're approaching Oakland and what you're doing with Oakland Fire Department. And I know Janelle, that's close to Janelle. Janelle is very encompassed with that area, and I know she had some questions about what's going on in Oakland. And you?
Oh yeah, well, I love Oakland. I was born in Oakland, raised nearby. And I think about what's going on in Oakland though right now. There's a lot going on. You came into a department, you inherited this history from some pretty big incidents. There's the Oakland Hills fire, the Ghost Ship fire. Now Oakland's in a period of transition as well. There's been a lot going on there. I was just curious how you take so much of what you've learned, you've studied, even all the way up to your doctorate, and apply those principles to such a dynamic city.
Janelle, that's a great question. And Oakland, unfortunately, a lot of folks, the only thing that they know about Oakland is what they see on the news, right? Which doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of this great town. I didn't even know up until I started researching Oakland when this opportunity came about that there's a beautiful lake in the middle of downtown, with Lake Merritt, and there's gorgeous redwood forests, and you get some of the best hiking in the Oakland Hills. That's the kind of stuff you don't hear about on the news, or just the culture. There's over 166 different languages spoken in Oakland. It's just a beautiful, beautiful city with a beautiful culture, beautiful people that has so much potential.
Absolutely.
With the fire department, I am the fourth fire chief in 5 years here in Oakland. And the members have really gone above and beyond to ensure that the department remains successful. And so for me, I'm very thankful for the fact that, I was able to bring on my two deputy chiefs with the retirement of two deputies who have given so much to the city with their contributions, their efforts, and their talents. And they decided to retire and move on. And I was able to bring on and appoint, my two deputies, as well as a few other key officials in my administration with the same mindset and goal that we are going to do everything in our power to assist this organization to reaching its fullest potential. And Oakland Fire has always been known as a very aggressive organization. And what I like to say, which I can respect and appreciate, is the same thing that we had in Hartford, but I like to call it calculated aggression. And that's something that was, as it pertains to emergency response and even fire suppression, our members do extremely well. It's just building up to that, making sure that you have a 10-year capital improvement plan in place to where you can have the proper apparatus to even get you to that incident or that call for service, which is something we didn't have. We were 6 years behind in buying apparatus. Last 6 weeks, we've been able to put 4 new apparatus into service, 3 engines and a tiller truck. Professional development program, making sure that that's funded and members have everything that they need to be successful, to be properly prepared prior to promotion. Because within our profession, we typically, we have a written exam, you have the assessment center, you have a certified list, and we give somebody a badge, say, here you go, kid, good luck. We're not setting up our future leadership of the organization for success. And so we changed that dynamic here in Oakland. Also, when you look, go ahead.
Sorry, Chief, to interrupt, but I imagine some of our listeners are like, okay, so what does that look like a little bit? And like what are we? And the other part of that is, what are we missing as a fire service? You hit on just a huge thing, and and you saw me nodding, and I think we've all experienced that, right, through our careers, where that's the most senior person, but that doesn't necessarily make them a set for that position, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's maybe our system.
Without a doubt, Aaron. And what we have to do, we have to rethink how we look at competency, right? Because what I mentioned earlier, tenure's always been equivalent to competency, and now you have this paradigm shift to where there's this unspoken battle or even war between old guys and old guys and new guys. When I say guys, that's gender neutral, right? Including our women and non-binary members. And so just like tenure is not equivalent to competency, on the back end, you got, more senior members of the organization that see these young folks come in and they have every certification and degree in the world. And then so now that's a problem. So now we say certified doesn't make you qualified.
Yep.
So we as leadership, we have to bring everyone to the table to have these discussions. And we as a organization and a department, we will determine what we state is the foundation of someone being quote unquote qualified or not. And the only way to get there is to make sure that you have your 5-year community strategic plan, which has goals that speak to the necessity and the funding of a professional development program, as well as a succession plan. You have to have all 3 to be prepared for the 21st century fire service.
Well, and kudos to you for, leaning into the succession planning. That's such a difficult thing, it seems like, for so many departments. I think one of the biggest hurdles there is just knowing where to begin. I think there's a second hurdle that we addressed earlier, which could come back to the issue of pride or ego, and folks feeling perhaps a little threatened by the idea of a succession planning and developing folks. So again, kudos to you for going there. Now, where do they begin? For someone listening to this, what's the first step? Is it that strategic plan that you mentioned?
Yeah, you have to make sure that the process is codified within your strategic plan, because you have to have a funding source. Secondly, something that is critically important, you have to ensure that there's equal opportunity of access to these programs. Every part of the country is different as it pertains to the fire service, but you have some firefighters that have to work their second and third jobs to make ends meet. So they're not going to be available to use their time off to attend any kind of classes. So as a department, you have to make sure that you make it available for folks to participate while on duty. That's critically important. And, of course, ensuring that, that process, whatever it may be from a succession planning, let's just say from a succession planning standpoint, there's always going to be coaches and mentors involved with a succession plan. And so that process also has to be developed for members to participate while on duty. Because whether it be the second jobs or, for Gen X, we've always talked about work-life balance, and we've never meant it, by the way. We just said it,
Yeah, yeah.
but the millennials and Gen Z, they really take it serious. And so they value that family and that friend time. And we cannot be mad at that. And so, making sure that our members, have that availability to decompress. And we have a program that is developed and structured to ensure that members can participate while on duty without taken away from their time off is so very important.
Yeah, it sounds like you, and I could dig in. I could ask so many more questions. Just how do you get that insight, and how do you, where did that, even we asked about motivation, but I'd love to ask. Janelle's like, oh, Sam, come on, we only get a half an hour on this. Poor guy. But you mentioned too, like you're using different generations, and you're using their strengths to help
Absolutely.
the other generations, right? And
That's right.
not to say one is better or worse than the other, but how can we use what you're good at, put you in a position of success, and bring others up along with it? And it's brilliant. It's very refreshing to hear. And I know I could jump into it for many, many more hours. We'd love to actually have you back again, but we also do this thing that as we jump into topics, then we like to try to lighten it up a little bit and go more into, you personally. We put you on what we call a hot seat. And Janelle starts laughing a little bit because, one of the things that I've always been blessed with is I've always been in these rooms with all these chiefs, and I've never had a white shirt or anything. I've always been the guy with a sweatshirt. So I've always asked these kind of like normal questions. And
I'm a hoodie guy too, Aaron.
All right. I was hoping you'd be in one. I'd be like, this is going to be good. Next time, maybe we'll get you just like, just a couple of people talking. But we like to ask hot seat questions. And Janelle, I'm going to throw you have the first one for them, right? And we don't know where some of these come from our listeners. Some of these come from like the depths of Google searches or whatnot. But we like to put everybody on these hot seats.
Depth of Google.
All right.
The depths of our brains.
Right. He's already sweating already, I can see. Yeah.
I want to start on a positive note. What is your proudest accomplishment?
My two daughters, without a doubt. It doesn't matter how interesting the day is or if I'm having a bad day. When I go home and walk through those doors, I get the same reaction from my two daughters every single time. And that's them screaming daddy, running and giving me a hug. So by far my two daughters.
Can I ask, are your daughters like the firehouse just doesn't, it's not that intriguing to them anymore? Or do they still like to every once in a while go hang out at the firehouse?
Yeah. So, I make it a point, to bring them with me to community events. And my youngest, Joy, we just had truck one, the tiller. We had a christening ceremony here a few weeks ago. So I was able to bring her with me and she loves it. My oldest, she's into figure skating and so forth. And the youngest, she's 5 and she's already for at least a year consistently. She said she wants to be a firefighter. So
awesome. So great.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
She has a personality too. The oldest is like her mom. The youngest is more like me. So we'll see what happens.
So that when we bring you back, we're going to have to ask questions about that, having family in the fire service. So that'll be a whole nother kind of episode. So Janelle asked that first one. All right. So we're going to go to the, one of the exact opposite sides of this is what's your biggest regret in your career thus far?
That's a great question, man. Biggest regret in my career. Honestly, I'd say not having an opportunity to come up through the ranks at a major city. I've always, I guess I've been coined now as a change agent chief, which, that's fine. Got the Hartford and great organization, phenomenal firefighters. And they were already class 1. When I left, they were accredited. So got here at Oakland. We just recently earned our class 1 and we are a registered agency for accreditation. And this is my last uniform. So I will be retired from the fire service out of Oakland. And, the goal is to, leave an East Coast department, Class 1 and accredited, as well as a West Coast, 2 metro departments, and ride off into the sunset. So my biggest regret is just not having an opportunity to come up through the ranks at a Hartford or Oakland. That's probably my biggest regret, not having that opportunity.
All right, let's lighten it up just a little, have a little fun here. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, biggest pet peeve I'd say is doing getting mediocre work. I really don't like that. I prefer. Obviously, everyone's not going to be high speed, low drag, but when you obviously did not put much effort into a particular project or assignment, or you're late, I have to come back to you and ask, hey, where are we at with this project, because we're getting ready to hit our deadline. Yeah, that's a big pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Yep. I should know. She's looking at me because sometimes I don't hit my deadline.
Never.
So here's one. I like these hot seat ones. I got good ones today, Janelle. So what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Man, that's another good one.
Yeah.
I'd say trust the process. Thinking back at 18, I was very impatient. I'm 43. I'm still impatient. I'm a little better, but very impatient at 18. Very hungry, very, very hungry. And I would say just trust the process. Put in the work, have the patience, and trust the process.
You got one more, Janelle?
I was thinking about this. If you were going to write a book, first of all, what would it be about? And if you've toyed with the idea in your mind, you have a title for that book?
Wow. So I am actually working on a fire service centric book right now, which is leadership in the 21st century fire service. So I'm working on that. But if I were to write, say, a book from a personal perspective, I think I would stay in line with my profession that I love with all my heart. And it'd probably be titled Embracing People and Acknowledging Service, just from a public servant's perspective. And that's why I became a firefighter, right? I don't have that cool story to where an engine drove by when I was 3 years old and I knew I wanted to be a firefighter at that moment. I don't have that story. My motivation or inspiration rather to join the fire service was being passionate about people as well as being passionate about serving. So that's what my book would be about: people and serving.
I love it. That's great.
I was just gonna say, are we breaking another news story here? Like another book, I think.
Yeah.
And
we'll be helpful with your book launch party.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, actually, be careful now. Janelle is writing this stuff down, and she's going to come back to you, which is great. And say, hey, Chief, let's do an article on that first to set up the book, and which I think would be a great idea. And lastly, just to finish up, thank you so much for your time and your insight, and we would love to have you back again because we dive into so many different things. Just about your passion. You are helping so many people by helping the people that help so many people. And so one last message, or I guess what would one thing that you'd want everybody to take just from our conversation and maybe, in this better every shift concept, if you could summarize it, ball it up and give it to, some advice to, whether it's that firefighter or that aspiring chief, what would it be?
I would say, control your own destiny. If I were to listen to those around me early in my career as a firefighter EMT in Mississippi, I would literally still be there at the rank of probably no more than a lieutenant or a captain. Now, company officers are the most critical persons in a firehouse, while the firefighter is the most important. So this isn't a knock at our company officers, because I have the utmost respect for them. It's just my reality would be I would not have an opportunity to travel the world like I have, to attend international fire service conferences, keynote speaker, being asked to be a contributing author to so many great fire service leaders' books. None of that would have happened if I would have listened to those individuals in Mississippi that told me every single day what I couldn't do and what I shouldn't do. And so, for all those that are listening, just control your own destiny by upholding the highest standards of ethics and morality. Work extremely hard, be a student of the craft. And again, today I just happen to be Dr. Freeman, but I don't consider myself a subject matter expert in anything. I am a bona fide and legit student of everything.
Yeah.
And that will certainly pay its dividends to you in the future, no matter what your aspirations are, whether it be that promotion, whether it be that opportunity to get on the technical rescue team, the hazmat team within your respective organization, or just to be a better person, period.
One last thing. What are you working on personally? I mean, you're a doctorate already. You've very, very educated. What are you working on?
So, right, I got the distinct pleasure and honor to be the dissertation chair for 6 different students right now who are pursuing their doctorates. Adjunct professor, currently teaching for University of Florida, coaching and mentoring, members within my organization. Once a month, I have a leadership class that I put on here for all members of OFD who wants to log into Zoom and participate in that class. And then mentoring, folks just from different areas of the country, and that's between all of that keeps me extremely busy, and I really do enjoy it. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be able to wear this uniform, and such an honor and privilege to be able to give back.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate you. Keep inspiring. I'm gonna go register for my master's, I think, right now.
There you go. You got. If you have any questions about any schools, give me a holler, man.
I might look you up. I do have a couple, but I've actually been researching it for a while. So you're just giving me the motivation and the push to do it, and keep doing what you're doing. And again, thanks. We'd love to have you on again in a couple months just to check up and maybe dig into some things that we didn't get into if you're up with that. And
I'd be honored.
Appreciate the time. Janelle, anything else we got?
Oh, I just so appreciate talking to you, Chief, as always. And
Likewise.
I love how the entire theme here really is just like constant improvement, right? Just like keep chipping away at ourselves. I love it.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to see you, Janelle, and thank you so much, Aaron.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.